Welcome to another episode of Purchase to Profits. I'm Seth Ferguson. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss our daily interviews with successful real estate investors. Our guest today started investing in 2004 with his wife Liz and now has over $20 million of residential and commercial real estate under management and has completed over $30 million in transactions. He is also the author of the book, Raising Private Capital, Building Your Real Estate Empire Using Other People's Money. Matt Faircloth is president and co-founder of the DeRosa Group. Matt, welcome to Purchase to Profits. It's great to have you on the show.
It is great to be here, Seth. And then I acknowledge you as a fellow YouTuber, and I appreciate you giving us a shout for giving me a chance to be on the show with you. So
you're very welcome. It's my pleasure. I'm really looking forward to this. So to kick things off, do you want to tell us about your real estate goals right now?
Real estate goals, man, cool. My real estate goals are, so we acquire, our shtick is we raise investors to buy multifamily. My wife and I currently, I have earned income and then passive income, okay? My earned income is things like fix and flips, things like, earning a fee for doing X, Y, Z or whatever. Okay. So that's meaning like I have to do something. I have to do something to produce it. And if I don't do anything, I don't earn it, like passive income. If I don't do anything, most likely it'll continue to come. You got to maintain it and manage it and massage it and all that to keep it going. But for the most part, it doesn't stop. The river doesn't stop flowing if you stop. So my wife and I, and my goal this year is to cover all of our expenses with only our passive income. Right now, we need some passive, some earned, to make ends meet and to meet our expenses. Right.
Yeah.
Our goal is to go 100% passive this year.
Nice. And what does that look like? Have you figured out I have to do X amount of deals to hit that goal? Or
yeah, my wife and I are on point with our numbers. So I know exactly what my monthly expenses are. I know exactly what my passive income is. I could tell you what my earned income was the last 3 years in a row if I wanted to, or something like that. So we know I think that's the first, maybe a lesson for your listeners is you got to know your numbers first and foremost. If you want to get out of the rat race, find out even what that means. So if you're exact overhead, including vacation, Christmas gifts, it's real easy to figure out what your living expenses are. I'm not even talking about that. That's easy. You should know that. Okay, my mortgage, my rent, my electricity, my water bill, that stuff. Okay. That's the first 3 minutes you should have those numbers. But then look back and figure what your actual overhead is given what you want to budget for Christmas presents and what you want to budget for vacation in the year, how much you pay in gas in a year, what your actual cost of living is globally from the full spectrum. And the only way you're going to get that is by looking at historically at what your expenses were in the past, right? Yeah. So my wife and I have gotten dead on with what our number is for our current living expenses, given some padding and some hey, we'd like to set aside X amount of dollars for vacation and X amount. I got 2 kids, so I got to set aside money for Christmas and all that. Yeah. So we know that number. And then with that, it's fairly easy to figure what you earn. But in real estate, it's kind of cyclical. If some months you earn this, some months you're in the, so you also have to average those things out. So it takes a lot of binoculars looking back in hindsight to figure exactly what your average expenses are.
Yeah. And so if we rewind the clock to you first getting started in real estate, was that always the goal you had to replace your expenses with that passive income, or did you have a totally different goal?
It is. It's not. I promise you, my goal is not to just go sip Mai Tais on the beach or move to Tahiti or anything like that. Yeah. I get friends that do that own real estate, and I got a buddy right now who's riding motorcycles through Vietnam. That's his dream life and all that. So God bless him. That's not mine. Mine is. When I got into the business, when I got into the business, it's a little different. I can tell you, when I got into this, what my goal was, probably to, work less, have more fun and just build something that I'm proud of. I think that when I first got in, now it's more in the matter of just taking ownership of my time. Like that's what it's all about for me is whatever deal I do, whatever I get myself into, the result should be money, of course. It's not a hobby, but whatever I should also do on the back end should produce more of my time back to me. Because that's what really the passive income thing is about. I don't believe that you'll ever get to a point where you have to put in no time to make the money unless it's in 100% hands-off investment that's producing 2%, that you don't have to even touch. There is some time to touch your investments, but I just want more and more of it back for what I make.
Yeah.
So that's my goal now. When I first got in, I didn't, it's hard to know what you really want out of this business when you get going. I mean, I think people think that they're going to buy a few rental properties and they'll get to retire or they'll get to just not have to work. I've understood that that's just what it's about. You actually do have to work, and you actually do have to put yourself into something. And then I just want to do it when I choose to do it, not when I have to do it.
Yeah. And so right now you control about $20 million worth of real estate. What did Matt before have to change about his mindset to be able to grow his business to where you are now, having about 20 million?
I'm still working on that, Seth. I mean, it's like it didn't take that long we were at first 5 years of my business, like 20, 30 units, from 2000. I started my business in 2005. Flipped a few properties, made some money there. Bought a few rentals, made some mistakes. 2010, 2008, 9, 10 crash hits, recovery from the crash, working our way back up, and bought a lot of rentals and whatnot in the dip, and started to work with investors as I did that. We played on smaller deals up in the beginning part of it. It's only recently that we're doing deals that have extra zeros on them. So I think that's what the comfort level I've had to come with is that the deals that excite me tend to have more zeros on them. I'm buying an apartment building for a couple million, or buying we're looking at a land deal that's just a couple million just for the land, where it's got nothing on it. This is just to buy the land. There's a large parcel of land that we could build a lot of cool stuff on. So I've had to come to grips with accepting larger numbers in my conversation. I got one apartment building that the mortgage payment is $37,000 a month is the mortgage payment, right? Yeah. I mean, one of my first rental properties, the entire property was cheaper than that number, and all that. So it's just a mindset shift that I've had to make to put myself into. It sounds like just another zero, but it's a big mindset. And like, I'm worth it. I can handle this. It's a value. I can figure this out to do larger projects. So that's the shift I've had to make.
Yeah. And looking back, do you wish you got involved in the larger projects sooner?
I don't know. I tend not to do too much hindsight. I mean, sure. Yeah. I mean, do I wish I bought apartment buildings in 2007? No, because they built it, but I mean, I see people that bought buildings in 2010, 2011, 2012. That are now liquidating those buildings because the market's gone up quite a bit, and rentals remain strong, and I think that they will remain strong. So I do kind of look at that. I mean, and we've sold some apartment buildings that we bought in 2011. No, we bought them in 6, 7, 8, somewhere in there, and we sold them I think in 13 or 14. And did really, really well. And so, and I don't regret selling those because that was a stepping stone for us. So I don't regret not getting in any way. It's just intriguing to me to watch the market and be happy for folks that did get in. So
yeah,
we didn't have the capital. We weren't positioned to go and raise that kind of money to be a part of a larger, to put something like that together in 2011.
Yeah.
I wasn't in that position. I am now, but I was in that position then.
Yeah. And what changes have you had to make with your business to acquire those larger deals and bringing other investors into those projects?
I've realized that I cannot be all about me. I can't do things just all myself, because it sounds really cool. And I see there's a ton of people on Facebook. You probably have them on your show that are just out there pounding their chest on Facebook. Like, I just bought a 200 unit apartment building and I just did this. And I saw one guy's like, I got 1,000 units in my pipeline to buy. I'm like, that's awesome that you are saying that you have that, but unless you just won the lottery, odds are you're using investors to do it, and you've got a full team of people behind you. Because if this person that I saw posting that was running all those deals himself, he wouldn't have time to type in that Facebook post. He'd be running around, all these jobs take time and all that. And so what's allowed me to grow into larger deals is building a team. And that's one. And going back to your question earlier, I'm still answering your first question, this question, but I'm going to add to the first question you asked me about, do I wish I had gotten into deals earlier? The only regret I have is that I didn't realize that bigger real estate takes a team. Even the largest real estate, just anybody that's doing deals bigger than, say, 10, 15 units, 20 units, is assembling a team. And I could have joined a team. Not gotten a job, but I could have joined a team, and that's different. There's different. And I actually have 0 employees right now. I am my only company. My wife and I are the only 2 employees. I've had 13 employees in my company. We've been up to 13 before. Realize it's better to just have team members that are just folks that are just have their own entity, that we just team up together and put together projects. So I've got people that help me find deals. I've got people that help me raise capital. I've got people that help me run the numbers on assets and stuff like that. And that's the biggest epiphany, is that I could have contributed to that back then. Now I contribute to it in a larger way because of the experience that the deals that I've done and everything like that. But the biggest epiphany was that it doesn't have to be just me going out and buying a 200 unit apartment building. What I should have done was either joined a team or built a team, and I could have easily taken down assets like that earlier. And now that's my biggest learning, is that, and for folks listening, that if they want to go buy 200 unit apartment building complexes, like I said, unless you won the lottery or unless you can clone yourself and make like 10 of you to go and do the asset management and underwrite the deal and go raise money and, put your cape on and go save the day if the property starts to go south or something like that. You can't do all those things by yourself. You can't. It takes a team to run assets like that.
Yeah. And just going back on, you had mentioned time before. Yes. Having that team allows you to leverage your time far more than if you're doing every single task yourself.
I'll tell you this. I'm on 5 fix and flips right now. We are renovating 2 apartment buildings, just put another one under contract. And I'm not like the dude I talked about on Facebook. I'm not doing this to be like, look at me. I'm just letting you know this is an example of your point, right? Yeah. That I'm doing all this stuff. And the reason I'm able to do it is because I build teams and I leverage other people's time, and I know my lane, that like, I'm not going to go meddle in their stuff. I'm going to let them do what they do, and I'm going to do what I do. And we're going to collaborate and have conference calls and what do you need me to do? And if they need me to jump in, I'm a great team member. I'll jump on and take it from them if they need me to help or whatever. But because I build teams, it enables me to be on a lot of different things. And that, so.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. So looking back at all the deals you've done, is there one that stands out as a keystone deal? Yeah.
It probably was my, again, I'm just like, let's just make this like the context of today's conversation is team building and doing bigger deals, right? We bought a 49 unit out in central Pennsylvania, out in Lancaster County, or people that live out there say Lancaster. They kind of let it all roll together. But Lancaster, if you're not from the area. We bought a property there. It's 49 unit building, factory conversion, gorgeous asset. I mean, just one of those just cool looking properties. When you drive by, you're like, man, that's a cool looking building, because it used to be a factory. So now it's got the cool windows and it's got spiral staircases and it's just a cool spot. Like if I was back in my 20s, I'd want to live there, Yeah. So it was just a great asset, big stretch for us to buy. It was 4 times more expensive than the most expensive asset I had bought before that closing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I bought it, I'll tell you, I bought it for like $3.5 million. and it's just under that. My most expensive asset before that purchase was $1 million. And so was a big stretch for us financially. The equity raise was a big stretch. And it was the first deal that I really put together like a really great team on. I put a great property manager. I convinced the property manager that it was a great deal and they should invest with me. So my property manager put equity in the deal, like put money into the deal. My cousin of mine lived around the corner from the property. He owned some real estate. So I called him up and I'm like, hey, get in this deal. And so he did. He put money in, but he also kind of became my local boots on the ground. And that's like, don't discount that, because if he needs to I need somebody to meet a contractor, this property is 2 hours away from me. So he was able to run out there and meet contractors and, be the legs of the owner. Not that I advocated to him, but he was able to do that. So I didn't have to.
Yeah. Well, how did you find the deal in the first place? Was it listed, or was it, did he go directly to the seller?
It's a broker listed deal. I think that properties like that are a good stretch for folks that are listening that have done a couple of deals and want to get into a little bigger multifamily. I can tell you, I mean, I've sit around in circles with like big guy real estate investors. They don't want deals like that, because the reason why you can't, it's hard for a bigger investor to do a deal when it's 49 units, is they cannot drop in on-site management. There's not enough. The properties like that don't make enough money and expense. They don't generate enough expense allocations to pay something called payroll. Okay. My property, I've got a property in North Carolina. It's 198 units. That property has 4 employees whose full-time job is to run that property. Okay. Yeah. A 49 unit cannot afford 1 employee just based on its expenses. Right. So the big dogs do not want a property like that, because they're like, what am I going to do with it? I can't, I can't just parachute in my team and have that property pay payroll for me. Forget it. They're not going to do it. It's also typically too big for the small guys that are buying duplexes, single family homes, and want to stick in that area, right? So if somebody wants to get into syndications and wants to raise equity from investors to get into deals, look at something between 20 and about 70 units. Because above 70, once you get about, the magic number is 80. Once you get above 80 units, you can afford a payroll. So you want to stay below the payroll number, but above the number where the duplexes and triplex guys are going to try and get in on it, right?
Yeah.
So I find that to be a super sweet spot, and that's what I loved about the deal, is because it was on the market. It was marketed, and like the realtor, the broker was trying to push it, but couldn't get anybody interested. It was a perfect stepping stone for us at that time. And so, I mean, like, people like, how did you find it? Did you send a mailing campaign? Did you drive past the property and do lots of investigation? No, my broker sent it to me. Like if you want this, like, great, give me like the juicy story on how you found the deal. I mean, it was an interesting story how I closed the deal, but how we found the deal, no, it's on the broker's mailing list.
Yeah. So the broker sends it out to you. What jumped off the page at you? What was the big blinking light saying, "Buy me"?
The proximity of the asset, right in the middle of a downtown with a train station across the street. I hate to say this, it was a cool looking asset. So I knew it would be very easy to raise money for that, because it's like, hey, look at this cool looking factory conversion thing with the spiral staircases and everything like that.
Sexy sells.
Yeah. It's like a sexy building. But people want to buy something that they're proud to say that they own. And this was something that there would be a lot of pride behind because of what it looks like. And there was pride of tenancy. Most people that live there have a lot of pride. They treat it like their home. Tenants are growing gardens there and stuff like that. I mean, it is a home for people. And it is pride of ownership for us, of course, not that we carry that pride with everything that we own. But there's pride of tenancy and pride of the investors too. They like to say, that's mine right there, So I like that side of it. Then just honestly, the numbers worked. They're asking way more than what we paid for it. It's lesson to your listener base. We weren't afraid to make an offer. So they were asking 3.9. I called the broker and I was like, listen, 3.2 to 3.3 is what I think it's worth. They went under contract at 3.8 with another seller, another buyer, right? I mean, I got to tell you, if I could like count how many deals I've done that went under contract with somebody else first, that person fell apart and then I got the phone call. Yeah. That's very common. Anyway, so that happened. The broker said, going back to the story, guy has it under contract at 3.8. He backs out about like halfway through his due diligence and just realizes he can't put the money together. The deal's over his head and everything like that. So he walks. The seller neglected to tell his broker that his mortgage was about to expire and that the property was about to go into default with a bank. But the closing date from that buyer that backed out would allow the seller to sell it with no default. But because the seller was backing out, that buyer backed out, the seller was about to go into default on his mortgage. And the broker flipped out. Oh, why did you tell me? All I had that I know this guy Matt and his team at the DeRosa Group can close. It's just that they gave me a way lower offer than that. He was, he was only at 3.2, 3.3 for the property. And he thought his seller was going to go, no, I could never take that. And the seller said, and the broker yelled at me when I get there. He said, "What are you insulting me? No, that's our price. Nah, I could never get my guy to sell it for that price." And when he gave the seller our number, the seller goes, "Let me call you right back." And he calls his partner, and we do the deal. And I go out there and I meet this guy at the property. I take him out for a beer, and he and I sat over a beer and talked out the deal. And he's this older guy that had owned the property for 20 years. And was was aging out, didn't want to deal with it anymore. And we just sat down over a beer and talked it out and did the good old boy handshake, and everything like that. So that's the story of how we closed. But it's probably my favorite deal that I've done so far. And it's actually making money now, so that's good too. It didn't make money at first, but it's making money now, so that's another reason why I like it.
That's always a bonus.
It's good. Making money's good. Yeah.
Yeah. And so by the time you got that deal under contract, that window between, when the seller needed out for the mortgage, did that put additional pressure on you to raise the funds to close?
He was able to take my contract with him to his bank and get himself a 2-month extension. So
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. It was, again, his broker thought it was like a 3-alarm fire, but it turns out banks don't want to own real estate. They just want to lend you money on it, Yeah. So the bank wasn't like, no, I think that they charged him a extension fee, but that's okay. I mean, to not lose the property and not have to go into default, that was worth it for him. So,
yeah. And what was there a value add play? Cause you mentioned it wasn't making money. So what was the value add or what was the game plan?
Mismanagement. He had a tenant in the property running this is, again, to your listeners, this was a property that was owned by and if there's anybody that's in the baby boom generation listening, I love you guys. My parents are baby boomers. You're great. But this was a baby boomer owner, and they tend to mom and pop operate spots like this. They don't do a corporate level, and a typical mom and pop move is to let one of your tenants manage the property for you. And so he had his tenant collecting his rent. She was doing the showings. She was accepting applications. She was handling work order requests. And it's like, very, very homey, like, oh, just go walk on Susie's door over there, knock on her door and tell her you need a work order and let her know that you'll be a couple days late on the rent or slip it under her door, right? Yeah. It just wasn't running very efficiently, and the tenant base that she had living there was not the tenant base that we wanted to have living there and stuff like that. So, and he was also leasing the property. The leads he was generating was on a for rent sign, handwritten for rent sign, sitting in front of a 49-unit apartment complex. Okay, and it was on a major road. I get it. So he was getting leads, but to give you an example, we closed the property. We had to close above a 10% vacancy, better than 10% vacancy. Okay, so 90% occupancy or better, which is only 4 units on a 49-unit complex, right? So he was at like 8 vacant units, and I was like, listen, you got to get, I was buddy with this guy and everything like that at this point. So I was like, you got to get that vacancy up. What are you going to do? And he was like, well, we're just not getting that many phone calls this time of year. And I was like, listen, what are your Craigslist ad look like? And he says, you're my what? And he said, you've never heard of Craigslist? I'm like, are you for real? So I was like, listen, let me do you a favor. You okay if I just put your phone number on the ad? So I put out a Craigslist ad for him. Okay. He typically got 1 to 2 calls during a week. I put out a Craigslist ad on Friday. Okay. He got 17 phone calls on the weekend. Okay.
Yeah.
So he was like, that Craigslist, that's a neat thing. You know, he leased like 5 units in a week and we closed because I put him on Craigslist. He wasn't aware of it. There was no Google pin drop for the spot. Like there's, you know what I'm talking about? Google pin drop, right? You
Yeah.
couldn't find it on a Google map. Just the certain technological upgrades that seem obvious to folks like you and me were not in his consciousness. Just wasn't something he was thinking to do. And it was fine. He was making plenty of money at 8 units. I mean, I think he owned the property free and clear, you know? No, I'm not talking. He didn't own free and clear. He had a mortgage on it. I'm sorry. I'm getting that story mixed up with another one, of course. But he just was making plenty of money at 8 units vacant. So it wasn't a big deal, you know, and didn't care as much. You know, people will show up eventually to rent it. So had his son-in-law turn it over the units. Like, you know, I mean, it's just the way that it went for deals like that. So it was a total mismanagement play. And he was also undercharging for rents. We got rents from like $795 to $825. That was his range. We got rents up to $895 to $925. So we got $100 a month bump in rents with very little renovations to the site. He was just undercharging on the market.
Yeah.
So.
And was your plan, or did you do a refi at some point once you got everything, under control?
We could. I mean, we bought it for $3.35 million. The site just appraised for 4.2.
Nice.
So I could sell it or refinance it if I wanted to. I mean, we're considering. We bought the property when interest rates did this. So my interest rate, I'm embarrassed to say, is 3.375 on that property.
It's free money.
I know. It's like, geez, you can't get that kind of money anywhere. So I've got a couple more years left on that mortgage. So I'm looking at maybe putting a second on it, but definitely not refining because that just would blow me out if I did that. So I'm not going to do it. We're considering putting a second on it and maybe paying back some investor capital, maybe just doing some capital improvements to the site. You know, we got a good problem at this point.
Yeah. And I really like that story because it shows how thinking about real estate as a business can really go in and solve other people's messes where they just, treat it as a hobby.
I think that's the biggest opportunity right now in America and in real estate. If you want to play the multifamily game, the biggest opportunity in multifamily is the just natural passing of the baton from the mom and pop generation that were running real estate, that just naturally ran real estate and got by running real estate as a mom and pop. And as a, I'll cut the owner's got out there cutting the grass himself and stuff like that. Totally fine. And that's great. But but transferring it from there to treating the property like a business, as you just said, right? And keeping it up on technology, keeping it up and using education and technology and sites like, education sites like Bigger Pockets and stuff like that to learn best practices on how to run sites like that. There is a major transfer happening from mom and pop generations to folks that are slightly younger. I like to think I'm youngish, but for folks that are youngish that are running, that are able to run sites like a business versus running it like, I don't want to say running it like a hobby, but just not a mom and pop.
Yeah. And how has getting into real estate changed your life so far?
Make a list. It's hard to say now because it's so hard to look back. I've been in business for 13 years, so I can't even imagine what my life would look like. I like to joke and say I'm unemployable because if I decided to just get completely out of real estate and go out and get a job, I just don't think I would be able to do it at this point. But it's given me a lot of the lifestyle that I have. I'm very grateful for it. But most importantly, it's given me, above all of those things, it's given me ownership of my time. My father got sick and ended up passing away in 2010. And because I'm in real estate and as an investor, I was able to run my whole business from my mother's house, which is 2 hours away. So I could be there with her and help her make arrangements and be there at his deathbed when he died. I was able to do all that and I'm not judging folks that have day jobs. It is what it is. I had one for 7 years before I got started in this business, but someone with a day job would have had to take PTO or vacation or whatever it is to make something like that happen. And I'm sure they would have been able to been there too. I'm not saying they couldn't have done that, but they would have had to make more sacrifices in their life to do that. But because I run my own company, because I'm in real estate full time, and because my tenants pay their rent, whether I'm there to receive it in my hand or not, I was able to spend a lot of time in that. And like when my wife had our first child, I was able to stay home for a while with her. And it just, when life came up that I wanted to put my time into that, aside from producing a living, I was able to put my business either on hold or run it remotely from my cell phone and a laptop with Wi-Fi for a while if I needed to. So that's the biggest benefit that real estate's given me. And I would say that entrepreneurship in general gives that, or just kind of owning your own show in a way. But just life keeps moving. There's things that I'd like to be able to put making money on pause for a minute, so I can go be a part of things that are maybe more important than making money.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, those life events, like, you can't put a price tag on those. They're priceless.
You can't. It's invaluable. It's priceless. And that. So unfortunately, but I hated to see my dad pass, but it was being able to be there was invaluable.
Yeah.
So.
For sure. Well, Matt, if somebody's looking for some more information about you and your company, or maybe they want to pick up a copy of your book, where can they find you?
Sure. So a lot of what we offer we do offer passive investments to folks that are looking to keep doing what they do and to keep chasing their passions, but diversify their wealth and maybe not rely on the roulette wheel of Wall Street to reach their wealth goals and stuff like that. They can hear more about that on our website. They can pick up a copy of my book through my website. They can also get that on Amazon or on Bigger Pockets. But my website is derosagroup.com, and that's D as in dog, EROSA. If you're watching the video, you can see it right here, derosagroup.com, DEROSAGROUP. And they can learn about me. They can learn about my company. They can sign up for our newsletter for investments. There's a link to buy the book. And they can check out our YouTube channel. And my wife has a podcast that's there for women investors called the Real Estate Invest Her Show, which they should listen to after they listen to your show. So.
That's great. I fully support everybody watching this going over to your wife's show. That's awesome.
Afterwards, yes. Watch my YouTube channel after you watch yours. You're in and all that, everything like that. As long as you and I are both in their lineup, that's fine. That's fine by me.
Sounds good to me.
And then also I Bigger Pockets with webinars and write articles for them and stuff like that too. So that's a great place to find me as well. So.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, Matt, thanks so much for taking the time to share your real estate success with us today.
Thank you. You asked really great questions, and I wish you the absolute best on your ventures. And hopefully, I'll be graced with being back here with you at sometime soon. Happy to do it.
Yeah, that would be great. And to you, our viewers, I wish you well in your journey from purchase to profits. See you next time.